And you say Shot City, Shot City, Shot City.
I'm coming home again.
Hey guys, welcome to the show. I'm Travis.
Yeah.
I'm Andrew. And today we're going to do our 2017 NFL preview for the Chicago Bears. Obviously, they were very busy in the offseason. What were some of the big offseason needs you think the Bears needed to get better at?
Well, coming off one of their worst years in franchise history, going 3-13, they were an injury-riddled team, and it kind of exposed how much of a rebuild that they're in terms of how far along they are in that process. Because a good sign of a well-put-together team is depth, because injuries do happen. You can't use it as an excuse. That being said, the Bears had a ridiculous amount of injuries last year.
Yeah.
But it definitely exposed that this team has a lot of needs all over the place. But I've kind of identified as the Bears fans 3 needs specifically that they need. One is secondary help. They had one of the worst secondaries in football last year.
Yeah.
They're also one of the youngest secondaries in football last year. So they let those guys play, and it just didn't work out. They only had 8 interceptions total for the entire year, which is a low in franchise history in terms of the modern era of football.
Yeah.
So that's really bad.
Especially in a pass-happy league where
Yeah.
teams are throwing more now than ever.
Exactly. The Bears' defense, their trademark over the last, going back to the Lovie Smith era, was that they forced turnovers at a ridiculous rate. So to be the exact opposite of that was a huge. I mean, it's rare as a Bears fan to see that. And a second need for them was the wide receiving core, because there's a fear that, what are we going to do with Alshon Jeffrey going into this offseason?
Yeah.
They eventually let him go. But the thinking at the time was, we don't know what's going on with Alshon Jeffrey. Kevin White got injured again.
Yeah.
And, we're not sure what we're going to get out of him necessarily. Cameron Meredith came out of nowhere and showed some promise as maybe a number 2 wide receiver, but he's not a number 1, at least not at this point.
Not yet in his career.
Exactly. And then they had a lot of guys behind those guys that really didn't perform. So the wide receiver position was a huge need for them.
Yeah.
And finally, this is really the biggest thing for the entire Bears franchise, throughout their entire times of franchise, was the quarterback position. They haven't really had a franchise quarterback back since like the 40s with Sid Luckman.
Yeah.
So they needed to find, a franchise quarterback, or at least probably go a different direction at quarterback this offseason. Jay Cutler just finished his 8th season, had a really injury-filled year after having probably his best season as a Bear in 2015.
Yeah, he looked very good.
So, it was probably time to cut bait and kind of turn over a new leaf and clean the slate. So those were kind of the 3 needs for me going into this offseason.
Yeah, well, obviously, quarterback for any team, you want an NFL franchise quarterback who's going to lead you to the playoffs. And with, obviously, Jay Cutler, he just wasn't the guy. So moving on from him was probably the best.
Yes.
But going into free agency, I think the Bears are probably one of the most active teams in the whole entire NFL. They had a lot of big additions. They also had a lot of big departures. Some of their big departures, they lost Jay Cutler. He ended up, after he got cut, he retired. They also lost Alshon Jeffrey in free agency to the Eagles.
Yep.
What's your opinion on that?
Well, the Jay Cutler, again, we already talked about it. It was probably time for them to move on and just, it didn't work out the way they wanted it. He obviously wasn't the franchise quarterback they wanted when they traded for him. He was still a pretty good quarterback for them overall, looking back at things.
Yeah.
But it was definitely time to move on. With Alshon Jeffrey, this is a guy that, when he's healthy, he's a top 15, top 10 wide receiver type of guy. He's a big play guy. More of a possession wide receiver, doesn't really have that deep speed that you're looking for in wide receivers nowadays.
Yeah.
But he's a really good wide receiver,
Yeah.
and they were willing to let him go because obviously injuries. There's some talk that he didn't really want to be here anyway.
Yeah.
Wasn't much of a team player during his time here, and also, he got suspended for those 4 games, so it kind of looks bad. And he wasn't really that productive last year anyway, even when he was playing.
Yeah.
So I think they were comfortable moving on and just going in a different direction overall.
I think this might be a pretty big loss for the Bears
I
fans.
think it is
So
too.
obviously, you need losing a number 1 guy is going to hurt a lot. So we'll see how they rebound from that. But a couple other guys who they ended up losing weren't as big as them.
No.
They ended up losing Tracy Porter. He was kind of an older cornerback. He wasn't really part of their long-term future. So I could see that. And then Ego Ferguson, he had an interesting time with the Bears. He was a highly rated prospect and didn't really turn out.
No, he's more of a 4-3 defensive lineman anyway, so he didn't really fit their scheme. He didn't really play that much anyway. He was injured a lot, so that made sense to cut bait right there. And then Tracy Porter, again, older guy. I loved him for when he intercepted Aaron Rodgers against the Packers and Brett Favre night. It's a great memory. But
one of the bright spots.
One
in
of the
their
lone bright
season
spots.
last year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
2 years ago, but.
Yeah.
Again, he was injured a lot last year. He's an older guy. He's getting paid a lot of money to be a backup, which is what he was going to be anyway.
Yeah.
Because they needed to upgrade that position.
You gotta let the young guys play.
Exactly.
So it makes sense. But transitioning from their departures, they also had a lot of new guys coming in this year.
They were extremely active during
Yeah.
free agency.
One of the big guys is Mike Glennon. You know, obviously he was a young guy. He started his first year in Tampa. He's still got a lot of talent, and he can continue to develop. They ended up giving him a 3-year, $45 million deal. What's your opinion on this guy?
Honestly, I really liked him coming out of the draft when he came out, and I thought he didn't really get a fair shake in Tampa Bay. But when you have a chance to draft a guy like Jameis Winston,
you don't pass up.
I think you're going to take that anytime.
Yeah.
I don't think that's anything
it's
against
not a
Mike.
knock against
It's not a knock against Mike Glennon. I
Yeah.
think he'll be a fine quarterback. But again, when you look at this deal overall, it's a 3-year, $45 million deal. But most of the guaranteed money is in the first year of the deal. So it's basically a 1-year guaranteed contract with 2 years if they either didn't draft a quarterback or if they really liked him, they could keep him around for 2 more years. So honestly, it's kind of a win-win, low risk, high reward type of move for them.
Yeah, and in today's NFL, I mean, they're handing out big money
Exactly.
everywhere. So for a starting quarterback, I mean, who's got upside, that's really not too bad. Another really big signing for them was cornerback Prince Mukamara.
Yep.
I mean, this guy, he's a young cornerback. He's really fast. He's got good coverage skills. It's been interesting what he's been doing recently, signing 2 1-year deals in the last 2 years.
Yeah, I don't know what he's trying to do there. Obviously, I mean, he could try and get a huge payday, but he's been content to kind of do these 1-year prove-it-year deals. Maybe a lot of that's because he's not a guy who's been healthy a lot through his career, and he's not really an interception type of guy. He's more of a really solid. He'll cover his guy. He'll play solid. He's not really an exceptional talent, though. But I think as a veteran, kind of bringing them in as a 1-year deal, I think it's a good signing for them, and it definitely is an upgrade over what they had last year.
Yeah, he'll definitely be a starter, I think, from day one.
Yep.
Another big signing, they got cornerback Marcus Cooper from the Cardinals. I really like this guy. I think he's only around 25, 26.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he had a really good last year for the Cardinals. And, adding him to a Bears secondary that needs as much help,
Exactly.
I thought this was a good signing, and they didn't really overpay for him.
No, it's only a 3-year deal. Again, with the guaranteed money, it's really a 1 to 2 year deal, basically. And again, he had a breakout year for the Cardinals last year, and he kind of fits Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator for the Bears, mold of having bigger, longer cornerbacks that can play press coverage and play man coverage. So there's a lot of upside there, and he adds a lot of competition with Kyle Fuller, who was injured last year.
Yeah, and also looking down the list, I mean, after losing Alshon, obviously they needed some weapons on the outside. They ended up signing guys like Kendall Wright, Marcus Wheaton, and Victor Cruz. Obviously, they can't single-handedly replace Alshon's production. But, I mean, I think those are 3 guys who could come in and perform pretty well, and guys will be like, oh, wow, they're on the Bears, and they'll see them have a few big games.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely adds a lot of versatility, and, they can spread it around a lot now. There's a lot more depth at the wide receiver position for sure. I'm not sure about the Marcus Wheaton signing. I didn't really like him in Pittsburgh. I thought he kind of underachieved there, especially with Big Ben as quarterback. He was injured last year, and I thought he got a little bit overpaid, even though it's only a 2-year deal.
Yeah.
So it's not really going to hamstring them long term. But I thought he got overpaid there. But again, Victor Cruz, we don't know how much he's got left, but he's a veteran. I think he can perform if he's just asked to be a slot wide receiver.
Yeah.
He can be a pretty solid addition to them. But
and if he can stay healthy.
That is the number one key for him.
Yeah.
But I really like the Kendall Wright signing. I think this is a very under the radar signing. A lot of people don't really know about him, but I thought he was really good in Tennessee. I mean, he had 1 year where he had 94 catches in the season,
good.
and that was with Dowell Loggins, who was the offensive coordinator of the Bears. He was the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans that year. Okay. So obviously he knows how to use him a little bit. He can play inside the slot. He can also play outside. Again, and all these Marcus Wheaton and Kendall Wright do add a deep threat as well. So it definitely has a lot more speed.
It's a big play, big explosion offense. Yeah. And so out of these 3 new wide receivers, who do you think will have the best production for the Bears this next season?
I mean, that's tough to say. Obviously, I think they're banking on Cameron Meredith and Kevin White being the number 1 and number 2 wide receivers on the outside. All 3 of these guys can play in the slot. If you're going based off the money, they're expecting Marcus Wheaton to be that guy. I think it's going to be Kendall Wright personally.
You think Kendall Wright?
I think Kendall Wright's going to be the guy.
Yeah, I think Kendall Wright had a few good seasons in Tennessee with not as good of a quarterback as they have now. So hopefully he'll be able to get his career back on track with Chicago. Looking also some other key guys they picked up. They ended up getting Quentin Demps, who's a safety, and they got Jay Howard, who's a defensive end who will fit really well in the 3-4.
Yeah, I mean, both those guys, I mean, I really like the Jay Howard signing. I think it really solidifies their defensive line because last year they had Akeem Hicks and Eddie Goldman, who were basically their only two really good defensive linemen. And Eddie Goldman was injured for most of the year. He's a young guy they're expecting to be a Pro Bowl player, but Jay Howard can kind of solidify that line because Pro Football Focus and other advanced analytics sites have kind of rated him as one of the best run stoppers in the entire NFL over the past few years. So I think getting him in a one-year deal kind of make that the 3-4 defense a little bit better. I mean, the front seven was already a strength of that defense.
Yeah.
I think that even makes them even stronger. And Quentin Demps, he's a veteran guy. He had 6 interceptions last year, so obviously he has more playmaking that they need.
Yeah.
Because again, only 8 interceptions last year. I mean, that's a huge need for the Bears. As Bear fans, we're used to them getting turnovers.
Yeah.
And I think getting a guy like a veteran guy to add that to that young secondary, it will definitely help.
Yeah, I think he'll become a leader in that secondary, and I see, on the Bears' defense, that front seven, they got a lot of pass rushers, but not too many run stuffers, so I think the Jay Howard signing is a really good deal for them, especially on a one-year deal. Well, transitioning from free agency to the draft, wow, what a draft did the Bears have. I mean, they made a franchise-altering move where either someone's going to get fired or someone's going to look like a genius.
Yep.
If you haven't heard, they had the number 3 pick. They traded up to the number 2 pick for a 3rd-round pick, a 4th-round pick, and a 2018 3rd-round pick to select Mitchell Trubisky.
Yeah, I mean, GM Ryan Pace, he's only in the third year of his tenure. He's putting his entire career on the line here, and he's either going to look like an idiot for this move or a genius for this move.
Yeah.
And I've got to say, I kind of like this move after thinking about it, because going into the draft, I was on the Jamal Adams train, because I thought he's an Eric Berry 2.0. Going to be a Pro Bowl level safety right away. I think he's legit.
Yeah, definitely.
But getting a franchise quarterback is more important than getting a Pro Bowl safety if we're looking at in terms of changing the franchise.
Yeah.
And they're in the 3rd year of this rebuild, and I think it was just time to get a quarterback. And I mean, they signed Mike Glennon. Obviously, it's kind of a one-year deal like we talked about, but obviously they don't see him as a long-term guy. And he was kind of signed as kind of a fail-safe in terms of if they didn't get that quarterback, but they saw an opportunity to get him at number 2. They thought the Cleveland Browns would trade up to get Mitch Trubisky after picking Myles Garrett, so they weren't going to sit on their hands. And I gotta like the aggressiveness and the initiative to take that quarterback because Mitchell Trubisky was the number 1 guy on my board in terms of quarterbacks, and I think he's the most he best translates to the NFL in my opinion. They're going to give him a year to kind of sit and learn, but I think going forward, he'll be a really good quarterback going forward for them.
Yeah, he's definitely an interesting prospect. There is some there's some concern that he only started 13 games at North Carolina.
That's probably why they're going to have Mike Glennon start this year to kind of slowly integrate him to the NFL game.
Yeah.
But if you look at him, he's got all the tools you need for a quarterback because he's got good size, he's got good arm, he's very accurate. He's the most accurate quarterback in this class, and he's got very underrated athleticism and mobility as a quarterback. A lot of people thought, Deshaun Watson, he's this dual threat guy, but Mitch Trubisky at the NFL Combine put very similar athletic numbers to Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
So he's got pretty much everything you want in a quarterback from a physical standpoint, and I've been hearing a lot of good things about him as a personality, as intangibles that you're looking for in a quarterback. I've been hearing a lot of good things about that. So it's going to take some time, obviously, but I think if Bears fans are willing to, be patient and let him develop and let him, learn the NFL game, I think you could end up getting a franchise quarterback here. But the only way this looks good is if he becomes a top 10, franchise quarterback. Yeah. Otherwise, I think it was a very unnecessary deal for them because, like you said, they gave up 2 third-round picks and a 4th-round pick. Now, they eventually got one of those 4th-round picks back, but I mean, it's not a franchise-breaking deal in terms of the picks that they gave up. Though.
Yeah, they didn't really mortgage their future too much.
No.
But it's definitely going to add a lot of cameras and spotlight to the Bears training camp.
That is for sure.
It's going to be really hard for the fans to be patient because he was the number 2 overall pick, and people are like, well, he should be ready to play. But obviously, for young quarterbacks, it's a whole new level. You need to make sure they're comfortable. You don't want to throw them in a situation they're not ready for.
Exactly.
So I think, advice for Bears fans would be patient. You don't want to throw them in the water right away. Just let them drown.
Exactly. And, it's only become a new thing over the last 10 years that quarterbacks come in right away out of the draft and, are good right away as rookie quarterbacks. back in the day, it used to be a normal thing for guys to rest. I mean, to basically sit a year or two and learn the game. So I mean, again, we just have to be patient, and hopefully it works out. I think.
Yeah. Well, another interesting guy they signed in the draft is they took tight end Adam Sheehan, and he obviously was a D2 college athlete, but he's 6'6", he's 278 pounds, and I mean he's got rare speed for the tight end position, and obviously with Martellus Bennett gone and Zach Miller's injuries, I mean he could be a good prospect. What do you think of him?
You know what, I really like this one because they traded back on the second round to get him.
Yeah.
And they got one of those fourth-round picks back that we were talking about that they gave up. Mm-hmm. So by moving back, they kind of solidified their tight end position for the future here because, I mean, you look at the measurables here and it's just like...
It's off the charts.
It's off the charts in terms of measurables because 6'6", 278, you watch a little bit of tape on this guy, he's definitely got speed, he's definitely got hands, and I've been hearing a lot of good things about his route running ability. So, I mean, he's kind of been called Baby Gronk by some people in the scouting community because he's got those same similar traits in terms of size and athleticism. I won't go that far yet and say he's going to be Rob Gronkowski. Obviously not. He's got a long ways to go, especially transitioning from a Division II school. So I mean, he's basically a man.
To learn the playbook.
Exactly. He's a man amongst boys, so it was very easy for him to dominate that type of competition.
Yeah.
But he did dominate that level of competition. I think he had 16 touchdowns in his last year there.
Yeah, obviously, you know, in his rookie year, if he could just become like a great red zone target for them, they'd be happy with
I think they're going to slowly integrate him because, again, they signed Deion Sims in free agency. They have Zach Miller there.
They have some depth at tight end.
They have some depth at tight end, and I think this is kind of a boom or bust type of pick. But, I mean, I love the potential of Adam Shaheen.
Yeah, another interesting guy they took was Eddie Jackson, who's a safety out of Alabama. Obviously, he played on that great Alabama defense. You know, one of the things he was kind of known for in college was he suffered a broken leg last year. He had some injury problems, but when healthy, he looked really good.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of things that it was a deep defensive back class.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of scouts have said that this guy's a second-round type of talent, and any normal year he would have been picked in the second round if he was, A, healthy, and B, you know, not in this draft class. So obviously, I think they got a really good value getting him in the fourth round.
Yeah.
And you know, he does add some playmaking ability because he was more of a free safety, you know, center fielder type of guy at Alabama. Obviously, he benefited a lot from playing behind a lot of good talent there. But I mean, it still doesn't, you know, replace the fact that he was very productive there. And when he got injured, I think that was a huge loss for that defense. Because, as we saw in the championship game, Deshaun Watson was able to pick them apart.
Yeah.
I think losing Eddie Jackson is a huge part of that because he can kind of go sideline to sideline, you know, about 30 yards back and just kind of be that Earl Thomas type of guy for that defense. Obviously, he's not going to be as good as Earl Thomas, at least I don't think so.
Not right away, at least.
And he does add some return ability as a punt returner. He was a punt returner for Alabama, so, you know, I like that as a very good value pick in the fourth round. I think he could push for a starting position because, you know, Quentin Demps will probably have one starting position for them. But they don't really have another guy that really stands out at the other safety spot.
Yeah, if he has a strong training camp, he could obviously possibly take a starting position. And also, I think with this guy, he's a guy, he'll be like he was a leader in college, so he's kind of a mature player, which will help the Bears. And obviously, safety was a position of need for them. So, I mean, it doesn't hurt taking a guy in the fourth round, which you said was a great value pick.
And, you know, one guy I want to talk about here was Tariq Cohen, running back out of Kent State. And, you know, this guy's really tiny. 5'6", I think 170 pounds.
Didn't they call him, isn't his nickname Mr. Joystick?
His nickname's Human Joystick.
Yeah.
And I encourage you guys to watch his highlights of him in college. I mean, he's ridiculous. I mean, again, really small school, as an undersized player. But if he's kind of going to be asked to be that Darren Sproles type of back that, you know, Ryan Pace, you know, he worked with the New Orleans Saints before he went to the Bears. I think he saw a lot of Darren Sproles in Tariq Cohen. So if he become sort of the guy, you know, gets 5 to 10 touches a game out of the backfield as like a running back or receiver.
Yeah.
He can kind of create mismatches, you know, on offense. You know, he's not going to get a lot of touches offensively. He couldn't handle it anyway with his size.
Yeah.
But I think as like a fireworks type of guy where you give him a few plays here and there a game, he could, you know, be a difference maker as a big play guy.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's a perfect complement for Jordan Howard, who's a downfield runner. He runs hard. You know, he's not a speedy guy. Exactly. So I think that's a great compliment. he can have a third down role in the offense early on.
Yep.
If you get him into space, he can make some plays happen.
Yeah,
and
again,
so that's
those
a good
highlights of him
prospect.
on YouTube, man. I'm telling you, look him up. It's exciting.
Bears fans, look
Bears
him up.
fan, look him up.
Well, transitioning from the draft to training camp, there's going to be lots of stories to talk about. One of the big ones will be what will the Bears do at the quarterback position with Glennon and Trubisky.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely going to be interesting. You know, from what it sounds like from the outside looking in, you know, the Bears have been very adamant that this is Glennon's year. You know, again, he's only got 1 year guaranteed, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been saying publicly that this is Glennon's year. So I think it's basically Mike Glennon's position to lose.
Yeah.
But it's definitely interesting how they're going to, you know, divvy up the reps here because Trubisky, they're going to want to do as much as they can to develop him as possible because they put a lot of assets into getting him.
Yeah.
You know, they gave up draft picks, you know, a high draft pick to get him. And so they're going to try and do as much as they can there, but I mean, again, it's going to be Mike Glennon's position to lose, I think. You know, unless Trubisky looks like a franchise quarterback from the get-go and just completely outplaying Glennon, or if Glennon's just, you know, just downright awful during camp.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be Mike Glennon's position to lose, basically.
Yeah,
that's the way I see it.
Yeah, that's only the really scenario I see where they actually start Trubisky because obviously they want him to learn the playbook and be comfortable in the offense before they actually put him out on the field. But another interesting story will be, you know, obviously with Alshon Jeffrey gone and Kevin White really hasn't lived up to his potential. Who do you think is going to step up in the wide receivers for the Bears?
Well, I think, obviously, looking at Kevin White, you know, it's just been very unfortunate. He's had 2 freaky, you know, just bad luck, broken bone injuries. I mean, those are stuff you kind of can't control.
Yeah.
And it's not like knee injuries where it's just going to be continually get worse as your career goes along. It's just, you can't control a broken bone. But obviously, I think it's fair to just temper your expectations for Kevin White this season. He did show a few flashes in the limited time he had last year.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, if he can just get through this full season healthy and just get better every single year, I think I'll be satisfied with that.
I think every Bears fan would be very happy to see that.
Exactly. But, you know, the guy I'm really looking forward to is Cameron Meredith. Because
he came on really strong last year.
As an undrafted free agent, you know, 2 years ago in Kevin White's class, he was a quarterback in college, but he's got a lot of good athletic ability, and he's kind of transitioned to the wide receiver position very well, to the point where he was their leading wide receiver last year. He had a few really good games for them last year.
Yeah, he looked really strong. He had a lot of targets come his way, and obviously he is doing a very good job at getting separation. Yeah. And, you know, obviously, you know, he was a quarterback before, so transitioning to wide receiver, I like him. You know, obviously I think he can be a very good, you know, number 1/number 2 type guy.
I think he's more of a number 2 at this point, but he's going to be the number 1 guy probably this year because Kevin White's still raw and still got to get better, and I don't think any of the guys that they sign are really going to be, you know, their number 1 guys that they see going forward. Yeah. But, you know, I like Cameron Meredith a lot. He had a good year last year, and I think he could have a really good year, I think, because he's really quick, he's got good route running ability, he's pretty good after the catch. You know, he's a read option quarterback in college. Yeah. So he's got some running ability as well. So, again, I think I'm very excited to see how he develops going forward, but there's definitely a lot of options at wide receiver for the Bears. I think as a whole, the position group is much better than last year. There's a lot more depth, a lot more versatility in what they can do offensively there. Yeah. But obviously, losing a guy like Alshon Jeffrey will hurt because he's a guy that when the offense is struggling, he can get open and you can just feed him the ball and just go from there. But
he's a playmaker.
He's a playmaker, and they don't really have that guy, but they can spread it around a lot better this year, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think another interesting story in training camp for the Bears will be who's going to be starting their secondary because you got players like Kyle Fuller, new guys Prince Mukamara and Marcus Cooper, and they also had some kind of guys last year. You got LeBlanc and
Bryce
Callahan, who had decent seasons last year. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with the secondary.
Yeah, I think Prince Mukamara is going to be their number 1 corner probably, because just the way this contract works out, 1 year, $7 million. You're not going to pay a guy that much money to be a bench player.
Exactly.
So he's going to start for them, and then it really comes down to Marcus Cooper and Kyle Fuller will battle out for that second spot. And it sounds like Bryce Callahan and Cre'Von LeBlanc. It's a really tough name to pronounce. But I mean, those 2 were their best cornerbacks last year. So I mean, those guys will probably battle out for the slot positions because they're not, you know, big enough to handle being on the outside. Both are like really undersized cornerbacks, but both of them really get after it man coverage. So it'll be interesting to see how it works out. Definitely a lot more depth at that position for sure.
And they're a lot younger at the position.
Yeah, they're a lot younger at the position. So I think they're improved over last year, but there's definitely not a guy that I'm really excited about in terms of being a lockdown corner for them. they're really going to have to rely on that front seven to kind of be, borderline dominant for them this year.
Which is lucky for them because I think they have a great front seven, which will work out well. I think, obviously, you can't really do much worse than they did last year. So I think they'll improve. I think they got some good young players who may not be great, but I think they're pretty decent.
I think they can improve.
They can keep improving and developing, and I think they'll be better.
But, going to the safety position, Quentin Demps will probably be a starter this year as a veteran guy that they signed.
Yeah.
And I think Eddie Jackson will win the job. Because he's more of a ball hawk type of guy. Quentin Demps is more of an in the box safety.
Yeah.
And
they complement each other well.
Yeah. And when you look at it, Adrian Amos kind of been their starter, their best safety over the past 2 years, but he hasn't even gotten an interception yet in his career, which is kind of crazy to think about. In 2 years, he hasn't gotten an interception yet. So, I mean, that's kind of tough. I mean, he's really good in the running game as a tackler and stuff, but. They kind of need the guy that can kind of be a ball hawk for them. But, again, they have a really good front seven going forward. Guys like Leonard Floyd, who's just, I think he's going to have a monster year for them as a pass rusher. Yeah. And Akeem Hicks had a good year. I like Eddie Goldman a lot. Jarrell Freeman coming off a really good season. So I think their front seven will be the strong point of that team. And if they can just, hold it together in the defensive backfield and just be solid and create turnovers when they're available to them and just not give up too many, dumb, big plays that kind of kill them defensively. Yeah. I think the defense can be very solid for them this year.
Yeah, definitely.